If you're driven to make a difference, to have an impact, to grow your nonprofit to new heights, then the most important asset you need is a well-executed and scalable strategy. Hi, I'm Tom Kelly, your nonprofit catalyst. You may know me as the CEO of Charity Stay and Donor Books or the author of The $1 Million Nonprofit. What I help nonprofits achieve that gives them significant edge and a clear path to substantial growth is the ability to strategically fundraise and effectively engage their community. And that's what I'm going to share with you right here on the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast. In each episode, I'm going to take you behind the scenes to reveal the strategies, techniques, and tactics of successful nonprofits so you can avoid common pitfalls and drive your organization forward. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Kelly. Today, we're joined by Natalie Ledwell, a trailblazer in the personal development and education space. Natalie is the visionary behind Mind Movies and the creator of the Personal Growth Studies curriculum and the FeelWise Foundation designed to enhance emotional well-being for students, teachers, and individuals alike. Can you share a little bit about your journey and what inspired you to create Mind Movies?
Yes. So Mind Movies was created back in 2007. That was when The Secret, there was a movie talking about the law of attraction and manifestation, had just hit Oprah, and everyone was talking about visualizing and being able to create the future that they want. And so a Mind Movie, in essence, is a vision board. Before Mind Movies, people would collect magazines, cut out the photos of the car they wanted to drive or the house they wanted to live in. They'd put it up on a board so that when they looked at these photos, it was easier for them to imagine themselves already driving the car or already living in the house.
I had mine right on my phone screen.
There you go.
I love it.
So not long after The Secret had been on Oprah, a friend of ours approached my then husband and I with this idea, and he had created a slideshow. So it was photos of the things that he wanted, like you would put on a vision board. It was affirmations describing what he wanted. And then he had music, he had a song over the top. So it was this dynamic, moving movie. And I remember, I still get goosebumps thinking about watching his Mind Movie. Now, he was a single 30-something-year-old guy. So there was lots of girls in bikinis and hot cars and things that I do not resonate with. But I could see the power of this movie. And so then he approached Glenn and I and said, look, let's set up a website, let's sell the instructions so people around the world can do this, which we thought was a great idea, although we already had 4 businesses that we were running concurrently, so we didn't have a lot of time, and we knew nothing about the internet. Glenn could hardly turn on a computer. I hadn't even heard of YouTube, and our friends like, it's all right, we'll teach you. I'll teach you what you need to know. So from that point to, September 2008, we figured out the internet thing. We came over to the US, we joined a mastermind group, and we ended up doing our huge launch to the world in September 2008 when the economic crisis had hit the planet. And we had no idea. We accumulated 120 grand on credit cards, and we had put everything into launching this idea out to the world. And in the end, we ended up doing a $700,000 launch.
Wow. Selling
this little $100 package of instructions and CDs on how people could make these movies to really help them get clear about what they wanted and to be able to have something that motivated and keep them on track to be able to take the action they needed to make it happen.
So you started in 2008. What does it look like today? How many customers you have? How many people have you helped?
Yeah.
And what is the subscription model for that?
Yeah, we have reached over 10 million people worldwide. And that's either making their own Mind Movies or downloading the pre-made Mind Movies that we have. But it was a few years ago that I did a little switch. And the software that we've created to make it easy for people to make their own movies, there's a whole library of photos and affirmations and music in there that they can just drag and drop. But I kept getting this message going, you need to create a version for kids. I'm like, okay, so we did that. I did a version for 12 years and under and for teenagers. So the images and the photos in there are age relevant. The categories, the life categories, finding your perfect partner is not relevant to a 10-year-old. So instead we have categories like education and sports and things that are relevant to them. And then I'm like, okay, now what? What do I do with this? And I sat on it for a few years, and then I was on my Facebook page. This is before the pandemic, when everything was positive and happy on my Facebook page. And I came across a link that came up on my feed that I clicked on. And it was a story about a 10-year-old girl who took her own life because she was being bullied at school. And I don't know what it was about this story, but it absolutely broke my heart. And I don't have children myself. And I left school at a fairly young age, but I'm thinking there has to be something that I can do, which sent me down this little rabbit hole of what's happening in the world right now and how hard it is for teenagers and younger children to maintain a good emotional intelligence level or to maintain their mental health. And yes, we still have mind movies going and it's going fantastic, and we've got coaching programs and things with that now. But now my passion is really trying to shift the needle on helping students, teachers, and parents be able to navigate this new landmine or this new world that we're living in that's very unlike anything that we ever had to grow up in.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So how are you doing that? Is it still through the Mind Movies application or the website, or did you start a whole new company and project for that?
It's a whole new project, but it does include Mind Movies. I remember having this thought, I need to do something here. What am I going to do to help these kids? And then, of course, because I'm putting intention there and energy there, and I'm like, how do I do this? I have a colleague of mine that reaches out 2 days later, and she has 2 master's degrees in child psychology and play therapy, and she works with kids in trauma, and she has been around the world for many years. And she said, Nat, let's create a program to help these kids. And I'm like, okay, here we go. So the first iteration of this is a curriculum that we call Personal Growth Studies. So it's a curriculum to be taught in schools. We have a teacher portal where teachers log in. They can just play the video of the lesson. They don't actually have to teach the lesson themselves. So it's very easy for them to be able to have the program in their classroom. And as teachers at the moment are so overwhelmed and they have got so much going on, so they can just play the video and lead the kids through the exercise. But then we also have a portal for the students, so they can access the videos, they can access their Mind Movies accounts, make their own Mind Movies. But we've put a really important element into this because we're now using AI to help with mental health and help humans to be more human. So part of that is this AI voice analysis technology, which is another friend of mine that I teamed and collaborated with. And all you need to do is to speak into your device for 15 seconds. And we can measure the emotional energy that you're holding in that moment through the frequency of your voice.
Wow.
Which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
And we're able to feed this data back to school counselors and back to teachers and so forth, so that they at a very quick glance can identify any students that really need intervention quickly. But they can also see how students are progressing and thriving because they're starting to learn and apply and embody all of the lessons and the information that they're getting through the curriculum.
It's amazing how there's so much talk about AI and how you don't know what direction it's taking. I think AI is a wonderful thing, and there's so many new opportunities. And this is just one of those examples of, hey, this is what can really help a lot of people, especially identify some of the people that are a little bit troubled with mental health issues and trying to catch it early before something happens. It's just amazing how those things happen and what we can do. So
yeah, well,
kudos
I mean,
to you for figuring that out.
AI is coming, and it is going to completely rejig everything. It's really going to look at education. A lot of what's being taught in schools right now will be irrelevant. So there's a big change coming. And I think that whenever we're looking at big changes like this, or even things like the pandemic, when you have a strong foundation of understanding the emotions that are coming up for you, being able to describe what those are, understanding why you're feeling those emotions. And there's no such thing as good or bad emotions. They're just emotions, and they all have information for us. But when you can understand that and go, okay, I understand why I'm feeling this, but this is what I can do to shift into a different energy and into a different emotion, then it doesn't matter what's happening in the world around us. We know how to self-regulate. We know how to maintain our self-esteem and our confidence to be able to navigate anything that life throws at us.
Yeah, it's wonderful. When it comes to mind movies for kids, how have you seen, what was the impact that you've seen in working? I can see it working for adults, right? I have mine on my phone. It's my background on my computer.
Yeah.
It's basically something that from an early age, I was a big proponent of Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich and The Secret. So those are all things that I love doing, but it's hard to teach. Like I'm trying to teach my 13 and 11-year-old like this kind of stuff, and they're just not like, and thanks, Dad. Who knows what you're talking about? But how is it getting them to adapt to and adopt the mind movie concept and put it into place? And what type of an impact is it really having on their life?
Yeah. One of the most powerful parts of a mind movie is actually making it. And when you're making it, what you're doing is you're really deciding, what is it that I want? What do I want my life to look like? What are the goals that I want to be working towards? And so when we're working with students and with kids, these are the questions that we're getting them to ask themselves about if you could, through setting goals and taking action and having a plan, can create the outcomes that you want in your life, what do you want those outcomes to be? And when you can give them the tools to be able to go, okay, let's start with the finish. Let's have a look at what you want your education to look like. How well do you want to do in school? What are the subjects that you want to improve upon? And what does that look like? We get them to talk about their friend circles. What are the relationships that they have with their friends, and what does that look like, and what do they do together? When you're looking at sports, what kind of sport do you want to play? And when they can visualize and see themselves winning those games, winning those races, having those great relationships and those great friendships, and having great relationship with their family members, and they can describe that in affirmations and with photos, that tactile ability to be able to do that, it really does help them to set that whole belief system that, you know what, yeah, maybe I could do this. All I have to do is follow this little plan, or I have to follow this formula, and I'm able to get that done. So it helps them, and it teaches them that if you actually set a goal for something, because we have that saying, if you aim for nothing, you're going to hit it with amazing accuracy. Why don't we apply the same principle to actually aiming for something that we actually do want in our life? And so when we can instill this belief and this expectation and ability in teens and younger children, that they actually do have some control over the outcomes that are happening in their life, it can completely change the game for them.
Yeah. And I think just giving them references to what's possible is a huge thing, because I ask my kids all the time, they're like, I don't know. I don't know what I want. I don't know, because they just haven't experienced it. Really, we don't know what we want until we've seen someone else doing it, achieving it, having it. And then we're like, ooh, I want that. And that's a great thing. This is why I love this. I like the first thing I'm doing after we get off this call is getting my kids on mind movies and figuring out how to create their vision board, because I think having that reference point is exactly what they need to just get the ball rolling. And then from there, I'm sure, like you've seen in group sessions, them getting excited about, oh my God, I could do this. I could be a champion. Oh yeah, this is how my peer group can affect me in a negative way in the future. It's amazing.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kudos to you. This is great.
Yeah, and I think too, when they put some thought into, and we have different questions that they can answer to help them make their mind movies, but when they can really visualize what they want from their friendships and how they show up as a friend and what their values are and what's important to them. In the curriculum, we have lessons on what are your personal standards when it comes to these different things. Really think about how you want to show up and how you want the world to see you. And so when they can, sometimes these questions are never asked of them. So they're like, oh, I haven't thought about this. Let me think about it. So it really does help them to have a much stronger sense of themselves. And we even have lessons where they can see different scenarios when it comes to like drugs and peer pressure and so forth. And it's okay, now that you know what your standards are and what your values are and who you want to be, if this situation was to show up for you, how would you show up in alignment with those things? So it's already getting them to pre-think and pre-understand what they want to do and how they want to show up in those particular scenarios.
So with the personal growth studies, is this like a coaching program for young adults and kids? Is that kind of how it's structured and set up?
Yeah, it's basically a subject taught in the classroom. We've been working with a charter school over in Miami, and so they have that. Just the teachers just play the videos and then take the kids through the lessons. We've been working with a Catholic school in Louisiana, so they, in their religious classes, they do the personal growth studies at the beginning of that, and then they do the religion afterwards. And now we're talking to a military school in Missouri, and we're doing a summer program with them. So it is designed to be taught in a classroom situation. There's 20 lessons per grade, and it's K to 12. So I think it's a 36-week school year here in the US. Not all the lessons need to be taught. They don't have to be taught in any succession. But the feedback that we're getting from the schools, the teachers, and the students, that they just love the lessons because they're fun. And not only are they're being taught the concept, but they're then doing something that demonstrates to them how this concept plays out in a real life situation, or how they would incorporate this in their life, which is really cool. But the interesting thing is that a lot of the schools that we talk to, they're like, that's great, but what about the parents? That's when we designed the FeelWise app, which was to really look at that solution where we could have family involvement in this whole process.
Yeah, because I can see that the family has such a big influence on the child. And right. Yeah, your child could be trying to grow and improve in personal development, but if they have a family member that is just constantly negative and bringing them back down, it's basically you're taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. So yeah, that's great. Can you share some specific examples of how the curriculum works, the methods? I have here some examples of like subconscious thought patterns and overall growth and well-being. Like, how does that all come to play, and some examples of some real life examples with some of the people that use your program?
Yeah, there are some common themes through all of the years. So things like gratitude, empathy, self-esteem, self-image, they are taught differently each year because it depends on the education level or the developmental level of the students. Gratitude is every single year, but it's taught differently depending on how they can absorb that. But then depending on their age, we know that there's going to be certain developmental areas that certain developmental levels and milestones that they want to reach over their time when they're growing up. So we're looking at social skills. We're looking at personality development. We're looking at cognitive development, emotional development, social, psychosocial. So some of these are relevant to younger kids, and then some of them aren't relevant until they're a little bit older. Things like sense of belonging. So for example, let's say that we're teaching a sense of belonging. One of the exercises that would be with a lesson like that is for kids to look at all of the different social circles that they have. For some kids, they struggle at school and it's not a safe place for them. But they'll have friend groups outside of school, and then they'll have different family groups or cousins or different things. So it's getting them to acknowledge and realize all the different friendships and circles that they have, even though it might not be in one place. It could be playing sport or whatever that is. With gratitude, it's not just gratitude for the things that they have, it's gratitude for why they have them, sharing gratitude as a practice with their family. So they might sit around the dinner table and all share something that they're grateful for that day. And it could also be gratitude for like things that are coming to them. So they realize when they're making their mind movie and they're setting that plan, they're going to be grateful in advance for all of these amazing things that they're working towards, because it helps them to set that belief that they're going to be achieving that in their life. And even things like moral development. We were talking before about setting their personal standards and really getting them to think about how they want society to see them and how they want to be seen themselves. And then how they interact with other people. And then also looking at like self-esteem, like really getting them to acknowledge how, because sometimes we as adults still do this. We might beat ourselves up because we didn't pass an exam or we didn't get this thing done. But for them to realize that that's okay, I can overcome this, or realizing that mistakes aren't such a bad thing, and realizing mistakes are a great opportunity to be learning something new. And so with each of the lessons and the exercises that they have, it's not just that they go through the process of going, when's the last time I made a mistake? Okay, how did that make me feel? How would I do it differently next time?
What did I learn from it?
And what did I learn from it? Yeah. But with all of these things, we're getting them to tap into how they feel when they do it. Like we have been teaching this, teachers have been teaching this program in Liberia, Africa. So I've actually been working with a team of teachers there. And the kids have actually even changed the way they started to question things. They started to go, wait a minute. They started to think for themselves. And one example of that was the lesson on generosity. A few of the students went home. They were talking to their parents about generosity, and the parents like, no, everyone knows that's bad luck. You can't, that's bad luck. You shouldn't do that. And the kids are like, what? No, that doesn't make any sense. So they're like, but I feel good when I do this. This is something that I want to do more of. Getting them into the habit of paying compliments or helping their their classmates. One of the lessons is even having them come up with an agreement together on how they're going to be with each other in the classroom. And they do, I think we call it a promise tree. So they have a big thing up on the wall and they all put their handprint on there because that's their signature that, yes, I'm going to agree. And this is our mission for our class. And this is how we're going to support and collaborate and help each other. So it covers a whole gamut of everything, and it does hit those really important milestones of development. And that's why the pandemic was so horrendous for so many kids, because when you look at things like their social skills, psychosocial skills, sense of belonging, all of those milestones were missed by a lot of kids. And of course, their only interaction was online, which, as we know, is so mentally damaging and psychologically damaging to teens right now that it's not real, and it's setting unreal expectations for them. And this is why mental health has in epidemic proportions at the moment. And not just here in the US, but all over the world. Yeah.
So how are you collaborating with the schools and the communities and other organizations to really get this out to as many people as possible? What is your messaging to them, and how are you trying to teach them? Because I'm assuming you have to work with the schools, the communities, and the organizations to then teach it and bring the kids in. So how are you like reaching out and collaborating with them to get more on board?
We can always do with more reach out. We do have a team in the company that have a lot of school relationships that are reaching out for us. But what we have realized is that when we're starting with a school, we start with a 3-month free pilot, because we know how good the program is and we can show them all the testimonials and the data that we've collected from other schools. But until you're actually going through and seeing how easy it is to be able to implement this in the classroom, and you're actually palpably seeing the improvement with the behavior issues, with attendance, with the happiness levels and the leadership levels and the confidence levels of the kids, that's when we know we know we have a customer here. So yeah, we always start with a free 3-month pilot. And then, because with the FeelWise app that I was referring to earlier, with any of the schools that do that, we are actually gifting that app to teachers so that they also have something that can help with their mental health and their emotional well-being right now. Because and I alluded to this before, but last year over 300,000 teachers left the profession in the US. They like between a rock and a hard place right now, because they are seeing behavior issues showing up in their students that they have never seen before because of the pandemic. Parents have been in this heightened moment of fear. So, of course, they're super anxious. They're concerned for the well-being of their kids. So, the teachers are bearing a lot of that as well. And it's just been a challenge. And because all these teachers are leaving, then the ones that are left have got this overwork of work that they have to do, this overload. So it's a crazy situation. So we're trying to support the teachers as much as we possibly can so that they are able to do their job and they're able to help the kids get over this as well. But with the app, it's also it's encouraging parents to also be involved in this whole process. And when you can, as a family unit, be able to, for the first time, have a conversation around emotions with your teens, and I want to say especially the boys. I went on the CDC website yesterday I want to have a look at what the latest stats are of what's happening in the country right now. And I spent 5 minutes there and I had to go out for a walk. It was heartbreaking. And the biggest challenge that we're seeing right now is that, unfortunately, with the suicide rate, the boys are committing suicide at 4 times the rate of the girls. And I think part of that is because they don't have any vernacular, they don't have any vocabulary around how they can describe what they're feeling, which is the other reason that we introduced the app as well, so that families could start these conversations. When we're talking to the military school, the school counselor was saying she had to try and suggest some emotions that the boys might be feeling because they didn't know how to describe what they were going through.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's an epidemic at the moment, but it's not unsolvable.
Yeah.
You know,
it just takes direction in somebody to step up and be like, hey, this is how we can solve the problem. And then here are the tools and the tips, and really pushing people to try to adopt it and just try it. It's really all about, can we try it and will it work for me? And going back to what you said about them not knowing the emotions, it's, again, nobody really teaches this. When I tell my kids, like, hey, what do you want to do? How is your day? Or what do you want to do in 2 years? Or what do you want? What are your goals for this year? I don't know. They don't have any reference points to what an emotion is. They just probably know they're feeling horrible or feeling excited or feeling this way, but they have no way, like no reference to, or somebody's maybe pointed it out. Maybe if they went to therapy, saw a therapist, they're like, oh, you're depressed, or you have this type of anxiety. That's like the only time they can almost label it in a way that gives them a reference to what they might be feeling.
Yeah, but there's so many nuances to that as well. You may be feeling low, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're depressed. And so if you can understand what those nuances are, maybe you're just feeling a little frustrated, maybe you're feeling a little helpless, maybe you're feeling some kind of stress. But when you can understand those nuances as well and feel safe to talk about them. One of the features that I love about the FeelWise app that we created is that when you join the app, you can either join as yourself and one other person, so you've got a buddy, or if you get like a family package, it's like for you and so it's up to 6 people. So they could be mum and dad and the kids, or it could be mum and dad and the elderly parents and the kids, or it could be workmates or whatever that is. But you're a part of a team. So now everyone can communicate with each other within the app, which is fantastic. Start up those conversations. It means that parents now have a whole plethora of tools and suggestions that they can give to their kids to help them to shift their emotions. You do a daily check-in with the voice analysis, and it gives you your results for the day. And even though you don't see the results of your other teammates that are in there, let's say that you score low on, say, confidence, maybe 3 or 4 days in a row, it'll send a message to the other people in your team going, you know what, why don't you reach out to Tom today? He could use a bit of a confidence booster. So it's encouraging people to be proactive so that kids or parents or people in general aren't finding themselves in those isolated, lonely moments where they feel like they're not being seen or heard, and then make choices that they can't back out of, you know.
Yeah. It's what you're doing here. I feel like I haven't heard anybody else do this type of work. And I feel like it all starts with kind of that mind movie product that then leads you into, hey, let's build this for kids and let's create this program for kids that we can teach in a classroom. And then, now we have the app that we can get your family involved. I mean, it's a perfect journey, I think, from what you had to start with the mind movie to slowly get to, I would assume, the real passion and the mission of helping kids and families just live a better life. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I can see how that journey right there, like that's just an inspiring journey, just seeing it for myself. Wow, it's just a great path that you've gone down.
Yeah, and who knew? Even before we started Mind Movies, I remember I was in a different kind of business. I was in a network marketing business. And it's the first time that I'd been in a business that wasn't brick and mortar. So if I didn't show up, then I didn't get paid. And I'm like, so I created all these affirmations about how I wanted to help people and travel the world and speak on stage and do all these things. And if you had said to me, yes, you're going to achieve all of that and more, and you're going to do it through the internet, I would have laughed. I'm like, I don't know anything about the internet, but that's with the vehicle. And the fact that it now my focus is really helping our next generation. Again, who knew that I would end up here? But I think that for any of us that are listening, when something gets presented to you that has such an emotional, like I had such an emotional reaction when I read that article about 10, like a 10-year-old girl. I tear up when I think about it. That's so young to feel like you have no other choice but to make that decision. I'm like, I can't not look away from, I can't look away from this. I have to do something. And I'm very grateful. I don't do it by myself. I'm definitely a driver to this whole project. But I've been very fortunate to be able to attract the right people with the right information, the right tools and resources and everything that we need to make this happen. So it is a team effort, but I'm so grateful and feel so fulfilled that this is my path right now. You know.
Have you always had that entrepreneurial spirit, or did you just learn it as you had your first success and then you're like, wow, I can be successful here and now I can really make an impact over here? How has your life journey been when it comes to that?
Yeah, as I was mentioning before, I left school at the end of year 10 in Australia. That's where I grew up. And so I was 15 at the time. But my first career was in fitness. So at the age of 21, I talked my way into managing this fitness club. I had no idea what I was doing, but I'm thinking I can do a better job than you. So I always had that thing. So I really got to cut my teeth, my business skills on other people's business. I was in that career for 11 years. And then I met my husband, and then our first business together was a nightclub. So that was a bit of a veer in a different direction. But between us, we separated in 2013. So we've known each other and been in business together, because we're still in business. We're still business partners for 30 years. And in all different types of businesses, I've always had that. I'm not too concerned about risk. I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? We lose some money, big deal. Or just make some more. Like, that's always been my MO. And I love to be challenged. I feel alive when I'm challenged. So being able to step into the education space in the US, which is like not even the country I grew up in, I'm not even familiar with the system here. I'm like, all right, let's take on that challenge. And I think that when I'm always excited and I'm really willing to expand and grow, that's when I feel my most fulfilled, I think.
Mm-hmm. You touched on something there where you said, I can handle risk, and you almost like the chaos of the risk is what drives you, right? And you're right. Money, you can always figure out how to make money as long as you're confident in yourself that you have some skill to do anything. I'm sure even if it's going back to a fitness club and working in the sales, office, or working at a bar waitressing, it doesn't matter. You'll figure it out and you'll be able to still survive. But if you don't take that risk, you're always going to be regretting, on your deathbed, I should have done that.
Yeah.
I think that's
and
what
the thing is knowing that I don't have to do it all by myself.
Yeah. 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 It's so much easier when you have somebody that can, really just be there to just almost like a shoulder to cry on, because there's so many nights when you're like, what am I even doing? I want to give up. Like, I've given up 100 times. And then I talked to my wife and she's, okay, Tom, pass me on the head. And, I'm like, I'm going to bed. The next day I'm back up. It's like nothing, like yesterday never even happened. I'm ready to go. I'm focused again. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was just having my moment for the quarter. I feel every quarter I go through a cycle of, I don't know if it's a downturn or a depression, but I'm like, I don't even know why I'm doing this anymore.
I know, I'm lucky. Glenn and I, like I said, 30 years we've been in business together. Not many people get to be in business with someone that after that length of time, that they still trust them and our skill sets complement each other. And I've also been lucky that when I'm having doubts, I'll just call him up and he'll be pumping me up and I'm like, yeah, that's right, we've got this, it's good. Yeah. And vice versa. So yeah, it's good to have someone in your corner like that.
Oh, 100%. When coming through your journey here, what was some of the biggest, or what was one of the biggest moments that you had where you're like, ooh, I don't know if what I'm doing, what was a challenge that you've had to really overcome as a business owner and growing this big company and making this huge impact? What was a challenge that you've had to overcome, and how did you overcome it?
The story I told you about when we first launched My Movies, we did $700,000 in 2008. That was the Rainbows and Puppy Dogs version of that story. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. Our email list in our pre-launch week, this is when everyone's mailing for us and we're building our email list. It went from 8,000 to 80,000 in a week. Oh, and wow. Our email delivery company thought we were doing something illegal and shut the account down. So we had to get someone to get on the phone and get it reinstated. We were living in an apartment underneath the flight path of San Diego Airport. So even when we were doing videos, we had these planes going over the top. The same email company shut down for maintenance the morning of when we opened up the sales gates. No one was getting their confirmation email that they purchased a program. So we had 1,000 customer support emails by lunchtime on the first day.
Wow.
And even though we did a $700,000 week, we had PayPal was our payment gateway because we're Aussies and we're just over here doing what we're doing for an Aussie company. They froze the account. We managed to get enough money out to pay the small team that were working for us and to pay for postage. But they had $500,000 that they froze. And every time they said they were going to release it, they would change their mind. This happened for 6 months. So we couldn't pay our affiliates. We had 120 grand on credit cards. We had all this debt. It was just like, what the hell? And we had $500,000 sitting there that we couldn't get to. And then finally we had a friend of ours who was in this mastermind that we had joined. She was a lawyer. She went to town on these guys and they finally released the funds. But yeah, there was so many things in our reality there were obstacles and challenges. But our mantra throughout the whole thing was there's always more than one solution to every challenge. And we were smart enough to have joined a mastermind because our first weekend in the US was at an internet marketing seminar. We got accepted into a mastermind. So we were surrounded by internet marketers and people who had success and mentors so that we always had someone that could give us the right advice or that could get on the phone call or make a call for us and help us out. And just immersing ourselves in that world to learn everything that we possibly could. We were on the fast track. 6 months we went from really not knowing anything to being able to pull off this massive online launch that no one in our space had ever seen. And so when we went back to Australia and we came back the next year, we're getting emails from people like Jack Canfield and John Assaraf and Joe Vitale going, hey guys, let me introduce myself. Let's do some work together. Because everyone's, who are these people with this massively successful business? Yeah, it was. And there are always going to be obstacles. There are always going to be challenges. Honestly, I have been working with and trying to get into schools for a number of years now. That is challenging. Because even when we find someone who's, yes, this is what we want, there are certain layers of people they need to go to actually finally get to a point where someone can make a decision. It's been challenging, but I'm resilient and I'm here for the long haul.
To wrap things up, what is your vision for the schools for the next 5 years?
My vision is that this curriculum, this emotional intelligence and life skills curriculum, whether it's mine or whether it's somebody else's, is common in every school. So students and teachers and faculty are all being able to learn about how they can overcome, how they can have their own self-esteem, how they can self-regulate their emotions, so that they can be really happy, fulfilled, amazing human beings. And if we can start to teach children at this young age and they start to adopt these amazing habits like their gratitude habits and all of these things that are going to make them feel better and really encourage and uplift the people around them, then we get to change the world if we get to do that. And that is my vision.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Natalie, thank you so much for taking the time. This was great getting to know you and your business and the impact that you're having on the world. I wish you much success in the future, but thanks a lot for taking the time to join us.
Thanks, Tom. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Perfect. Hold on one second. All right, cool. That was great. I cannot believe the company that you built and the things that you're doing. It's so inspiring. And it's one of those things where now that I have a 13 and 11-year-old and my 8-year-old, she's still too young, but I can see it in my older two kids. Like this is every time you're talking, I'm like, oh my God, this is Caroline. She could use this. This is Jack. He could use this. Like they just need that little step to push them in the right direction. And it can't come from me or my wife.
Right.
It's got to come from somebody else because they don't listen to us, but they'll listen to somebody else. They're very coachable. They're both in travel sports and they're very coachable. But when I try to coach them, I'm a very positive person. I'm like you, like I have my vision board and I'm currently rereading The Laws of Success by Napoleon Hill and all those books. And so It's just one of those things where I can see how this is just can have such a huge impact on so many people. And you're right, it's just how do you get into those schools and what angle can we do? And if I can come across anybody, I will definitely send them your way that can help you do that, because I can definitely see it. And my wife's a teacher. She was a teacher. She stopped now. She does some subbing to have the freedom and flexibility, but she talks to some of her old teachers and none of them like being a teacher.
No.
Like you mentioned that stat, and I get it because I hear it from her all the time. They're like, I don't want to go back to teaching. I'll be an aide and a sub, but I'm not going back to full-time teaching because it's horrible.
Yeah.
With it just they're teaching to the test to get money, and there's really no. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's a challenge. So, Tom, if you're open to it, I would love to, because we're getting beta testers in the app right now. I'd love to set you up, and when you can then, through your account, be able to invite your wife and your boys and your kids to be able to join as well, and get in and have a play with it. Like when you do your daily check-in and we measure your frequency, and then it gives you all these suggestions on different things you can do. It's awesome. It's cool. And it means that maybe this is something that the kids will really warm to, because it's like they're getting their own feedback on what they're doing as well. So if you're open to that, I'd love to send you access to that.
Yeah, definitely. And I was also, where are you located? Are you in California still or in Miami?
Yeah, no, I'm in LA.
In LA. My COO is in LA. I'm actually going to be out there this next week, but we're starting to do these new YouTube documentaries for feel-good documentaries. And lately we've just been getting a lot of like for-profit companies to do this that are helping the communities. But I would love maybe later in the year to bring my team out to you, and we can do a document style about YouTube video about the app, interview some people that have used it. I would even send my team to a school that's anywhere maybe in the Midwest or even in LA, where we can, if you can coordinate with them to take a video of it, we can create you a free promo video, but we would use it for a documentary of how your app is impacting, lives. I can use it for my family and we can give some personal feedback, but this new feel-good documentary style YouTube channel that we're creating is all about just highlighting those companies, for-profit or nonprofit, that are making huge impacts. So if you'd be open to it later in the year, we're booked for the next couple months, but yeah, we do it. Wouldn't cost you anything, but we'd give you we'd basically create you a promo video as a thank you for letting us come into your world for a few hours or for a day.
Yeah, we're starting with a Long Beach school, grade 8. In Long Beach here in LA in the new school year. So yeah, I'll talk to Danuka and see what we can get organized there. So
yeah, that would be wonderful. Yeah, get some real life shots of it, and then maybe talk to the kids, or if they'd be willing, or maybe actually probably the teacher, not necessarily the kids, but we can interview my kid my daughter after she uses it for a while to get like a younger person's testimonial about it would be great. Yeah, awesome. What I'm going to do, we'll cut all this up. You'll get access to everything afterwards. I'm going to have Kelly follow up with you about that documentary style thing towards the end of the year. And it's been such a pleasure. I really appreciate
same here.
Time.
So what's your email, Tom, just so I can set you up with that app?
Yep, you can send it to T Kelly. So T is in Tom, Kelly, Kely, at charityauctionstoday.com. Okay,
cool. I'll get that set up for you today, and I'll send you some instructions.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, Natalie, thank you so much.
Great to meet you, Tom.
It was a great pleasure. We'll get you everything when we're all done with editing and all of that. Usually takes a couple weeks, but yeah, looking forward to keeping in touch with you, and can't wait to see the app that you have and the impact that it has. And I'm excited. I can't believe it.
Awesome. All right, darling. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast. You're here. That means you're ready to take your nonprofit to the next level and make greater impact. Come visit me at realtomkelly.com/playbooks to download free playbooks that your nonprofit can use to start scaling to $1 million in donations, plus much more. Catch the new behind-the-scenes insights in the next episode, and until then, here's to the impact you will make. I'm Tom Kelly. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and encourage others to listen.